You be seated, we'll try to get it started. Good evening and welcome to the Spring Island Thursday Night Trust Talk. Tonight's program will be Know Your Farm. This is something that Allison got together and we wanted to try to inform people about what we do on the farm and what we're going to do in the future and what the future holds for us for our farm. But first I'd like to thank some people who helped us so much in getting this started. First, the trust for allowing us to use the 4.6 acres, I think it is, that we now call Waterfall Farm. And then I'd like to thank the Board of Governors and Tom Noyes for all their hard work in allowing Eddie Taylor and his boys to help us plant this farm, plowing it and doing the things they do. And also in funding it. So, and I'll go into the funding later. And the irrigation we just put in, that now we won't have failed crops because of droughts. So first I'd like to thank again Eddie Taylor, Johnny Taylor, Timmy Carroll, and Jimmy Goodwin. They're the ones who helped us and work hand in hand with Allison and her volunteers in getting this produce put in the ground. So I would also like to thank Allison Crossman and all of her hard volunteers for all the work. You just don't know what Allison has meant to it, and I'll tell you a little later down the road. But it has been so wonderful in what we try to do here and what's turned out. So thank you, Allison, and all your volunteers. Yeah, as you see, I don't have a teleprompter, so I have to use cue cards. So bear with me, and if there's any questions, please let's wait until the end of it because we don't want to interrupt and you may get me off cue. And Allison's programmed me pretty good for this. So. I'm going to give you a little history about the island we live on. In the 1900s, the Walker family had this island, and during these times, these hundreds of years crossing, the staple products and the cash crops that came off of this island was corn, rice, tobacco, indigo, and cotton. But again, on this time, the people who lived here had what they called, not we, I wasn't there, but they called kitchen gardens. And a kitchen garden was something that they put off the back side of the house, either to the right or to the left or wherever, but it had to be close to the kitchen because the cook didn't want to walk 4 miles to the garden, and she wanted it right outside the door. When she was doing her housework, got caught up, she'd go out and work in the garden. And then there was old Jack and old Blue that hung on the back porch, and at night it was their charge to keep the varmints out of the garden. And if old Jack and old Blue didn't keep the varmints out of the garden, their hide would be on the barn next day and there'd be a new old Blue or old Jack. So it's very important to see where our history has come from. So in the late 1980s, the island was purchased by Chaffin and Light and Company. And they were developers that saw something here that, I don't know, you see what it's turned out to be, so you see the vision that they had. And in the mid-1990s, Buffy and I moved here, and by 1998, I was going nuts playing golf and doing nothing else. So I went to the trust and said, can I take some of these fields? We had fields all over the place, which we still have. And can I plant corn on it? And they said, well, of course. And they gave me 9 fields to plant on. Well, then I went to the board and I said, can I ask the members to donate some money to buy equipment? We have the tractors, but we don't have the equipment. Well, I had a lot of money donated to me. And we bought a 24-foot cut cross disc harrow plow. I bought a 2-row cold planter. And I bought a 9-prong Jacobson cultivator. We still have this equipment today. and we still use it today 16 years later. So that was a good purchase, and I planted corn, and I promised them when they did this, I said, you help me get the equipment, and I own a farm store, so I will get the seed and the fertilizer, and I'll plant corn for 10 years without asking for another dime. During that 10 years, I had two people that were very dear to me that helped me work so hard to do these fields, to get them started. And excuse me, but Paul Kinsey and Bob Hochstetter, you mean a hell of a lot to me. Now we're going down the road. We planted this, I promised to do it for 10 years. Well, and that started in, the first season was 1998, the spring of 1998. Well, in the spring of 2008 and the fall of 2008, I planted the garden with Paul and Bob's help. And we planted for 11 years. 11 years those guys helped. And we planted all over, and a lot of people who were here then saw the garden hoses that were running from Paul's house across the road over there. We had irrigation at the raw style. We bought a garden and we drug them out, and we'd go out and move them every day, and the only way we could move them, we had sprinkler heads on top of wooden posts, and we had to take the post and go here with post hole diggers and dig it again in the field and put it up. It had to be higher than the corn. If it didn't, it wouldn't grow. But we had some good crops on the Little Neck Crossing and across from Paul Kinsey's house there at Ivers Lane. But we kind of wanted to consolidate it, and I talked to Trust into letting me plant it where we are today, and it's been a lot better since we put it there, because a lot of the ground I was planting on was real sandy and it wouldn't grow anything. So then, in the fall of 2008, I went to the hospital unexpectedly, and when I came out of the hospital, I was blind. So my planting days were over, and in the spring of 2009, I was concerned about losing the crop and what we had worked for over that 11-year period. So I went to then General Manager Steve Roper, and I gave him a request that he go to the board and see if they would allow Johnny Taylor's board to help me plant the corn, because we'd been doing it on our own ever since it started. He did, and they did, and I was in an 8-week tour at Birmingham, Alabama on blind rehab school. You know, they have to teach you to be blind. Yeah, and you thank them for it when you get through. Door facing don't help. We got back from there, and that fall, I talked Johnny into doing the first fall garden. And all we did, understand this, we were just trying something. So we buy a bunch of seed, and we get kale and rape and radishes and turnips and all this stuff, and we mix it all together, and we put it in a box, in a hopper, and then we go out there and do this number and spread it out. And it looks like a flower bed, and everything jumps up. Who the hell knows what it is? All the members, when I asked them, Rick, what is that funny looking crinkly leaf? I said, well, it could be curly leaf mustard, and it could be kale. You get a mouthful of curly leaf mustard, you're going to be mad at me. But kale's pretty good. So everybody was complaining about, every time I step out there to get something, which I really don't know what I'm picking, I'm stepping on other things. So most of us, all we got out of that productively was turnips. Because we see the big roots sticking out of the ground, we knew what it was. So in 2010, I was riding my Foster mobile. Most of y'all don't know what that is, but if you look, you'll see it. With Allison Crossman, and she's a little bit backwards here. This girl's got a lot of nerve to let me drive. We were riding the Foster mobile, which we love to do, and I was giving her my concerns about, hey, you know, it's just not working. We're doing this broadcast spreading, and people are not being able to identify what they want to pick. And Allison said, may I help? Thank you, dear Lord. Heaven had hit me. I said, I would love to have your assistance. So that spring, she and I and Johnny Taylor, before spring, we sat down and we started talking about row cropping. We were already doing that with corn, but we were not doing it with squash and cucumbers and tomatoes and peppers and herbs that we put in our garden. So Allison and I started working with Johnny, and Allison's brilliant mind started setting these things up. She went and bought material. She had Doug Gaddis cut it up and paint it, and then she numbered it so people could tell exactly what was in each row. There wasn't any guessing about this. If the row went out there, you could tell what it was. I mean, it's easy to tell a cabbage from a turnip, believe me, but still, it's a lot easier if all these other leafy things that we're growing, which kale and chard and other things, it's good to know where they are and what they are. Lettuce, what kind of lettuce is it? So Allison has done the arrangements of these things, working with me and Johnny and other volunteers. Now don't let me short anybody who has volunteered and helped as much as these ladies and gentlemen have, because we've had some great volunteering going on. Well, Allison and I started tweaking the garden, and if you understand tweaking, we said we need more cauliflower, more broccoli, less this, less that. And every year, for 3 years now, we have been tweaking the garden, trying to get it to where what you want is what you're going to get. And we're not going to overplant things that we don't eat a lot of. So please bear with us in the future, because we are tweaking it every year. We have a plot laid out with Johnny and I, and we rotate our crops so that they not be planted in the same locations, which helps with the nutrients and things, and I'll go into that a little further in a minute. It's very important to understand that we want to plant what you people want. And I think, Allison, you're doing that. If anybody has any questions about these things, at the end, you can ask us, and we'll work on things, anything anybody wants. But then we went into the fall of this year, and in the fall of this year, I said, Johnny, Allison, let's do staggered planting. Now, the kind of staggered planting I'm talking about is not like Roger Olson and Bill Gilberton on a Saturday night. So that's important. This stagger is a little different. I think I've done a little bit too, Roger. I'm on that. In the spring garden, summer garden, Allison Crossman and her volunteers and Johnny's boys planted 3,114 plants.
Wow.
That's hand planted. If you understand these trays they come in, some of them have 18 to the tray, some 24, some 36. Johnny kept up with all of them, and he did our typing, and I took his word for it because I couldn't check the calculator. We planted that many in the spring. Well, in the fall, there was 5,104. Now, that's a lot of crawling around on your hands and knees, taking these things, and the volunteers, Allison, I called one day, and she said, Rick, my back's killing me. I am broken down. She said, I'm glad we don't have to plant today. We can do it tomorrow. So it gave her a break in there. Anyone who wants to volunteer, please, get on your hands and knees. You really don't know what these people are giving us. I guess you do. You really do. It's a hard deal, but it makes you feel good. You can go home and look at yourself and say, ooh, I'm sore. Boy, I feel good though. Because we're doing something that's very special, and there are very few people that have something like this. Spring Island is in all of our hearts. And this garden is just one more thing that brings us closer together. Now, we have, when you go to the gardens, please We don't want anybody to get hurt. And there's little slithery things that slide around out there, believe me. And of course, in the summer gardens, in the spring, summer, when the squash and the cucumbers and things in, you have to pick up a vine to see if there's a cucumber hanging under it, you know. Sometimes you pick it up and it's wiggling. You gotta be careful, and it would be advised, if you're gonna get in those vines, to carry some rubber boots or whatever, some gloves, and as you can see from this picture, we don't care what you wear. Charlie Michael left.
Why'd you block
I mean, we really don't care what you wear to the party. We really do not.
recognize the legs?
Isn't that neat? What a fun time. That is about the end of our program. I hope we have some samples of things up here if anybody wants to check them. And you don't know how much we really appreciate. And remember, this is your farm. It belongs to each and every one of you. You don't have to go work on it. It's a part of Spring Island. It's a part of you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? And if we don't have any answers, I promise we'll get them and Alice will put them on the e-blast. And we will get back with any questions.
Rick, this is my hand now.
Okay, you don't want to see that
hand. I'm sorry.
Allison and Rick, are you going to maybe present a Spring Island cookbook?
Now, Allison, let me explain one thing. If any of you have any recipes, most of you know this, and I'm just over talking that. If any of you have any recipes, you give them to Allison, and she puts them on the e-blast and everything.
Hard for me to imagine this, but this late August, early September will be 25 years. I hope I can do this. Since Betsy and I moved into that little cottage that's right over there. And I don't know anything that's happened in the last 25 years that's more of a manifestation of our dream and our hopes and our philosophy for Spring Island than what you two have done.
Thank you. We knew that being a part of an agricultural landscape, a farm was part of it, and so the trust is very much proud of the ability to provide the space, and it's just wonderful to see everything that's happening. So that's why I wanted to make sure I was here to say thank you too.
Thank you very much.